So Parallax is this cool effect that you see in a lot of websites these days, and y'all, I've got a confession to make. I have never done it myself. And so I was working on this new site and I wanted to use Parallax. And so I figured, let's see how hard it is. Turns out it's about 3 lines of code with frame motion. So let me show you what I learned. So I'm working on this new site where I'm going to be posting some new videos very soon. And I've been playing around with the home page here. You can see there is this video that kind of shows up in the background. And I thought this would be an awesome candidate for some parallax scrolling, the kind of stuff that you'd see, on Apple's pages. And if the background could move a little bit slower, it'd give the illusion that the content is farther forward, just like in that stupid thumbnail that you saw when you clicked on this video. So let's see what we can do here. I've got the code over here, and I'm kind of doing this absolute position div thing right here for all of the video and effects. So if I were to delete that, you see that goes away. And so the idea is, if we can make this thing scroll at a different rate as the content, we should get some parallax. And let me show you just how easy this is with framer motion. So if we grab use scroll from framer motion, we're going to get an object with some properties. One's going to be this scroll Y progress. This goes from 0 to 1. So we want to grab use transform and turn this scroll Y progress, which goes from 0 to 1, into a value that, say, goes from 0% up to 50%. And this is going to give us a Y transform, which if we turn this into a motion div, we can just slap this on the style attribute. And look at that. If we go back to our full page, you can see that's it. Parallax scrolling right there. And if we change this, we kind of get different effects. So 100% will slow that down a lot more, and it's kind of a more dramatic effect. The background scrolls even slower than the foreground. But basically, this is the main idea here. And I really can't believe I waited this long to try this out, because it's 3 lines of code. So this variable is going to give us a motion value that goes between 0 and 1 as we scroll the page. This is going to transform it, because remember, motion values from framer motion, they don't re-render React. They are updating outside of React's render cycle. So if you need to derive some value from them, instead of defining that in the component, you want to use this transform function, this helper from framer motion, and it will just map the domain to the range here. And then if we just transform the Y using the transform CSS property, it basically accounts right as you scroll, it's nudging it up. So if we were to kind of open up the inspector here, you should be able to see exactly what's going on. If I find this section right here, it's going to be somewhere around here, then right here you'll see, look at this transform attribute, right? We're just adjusting that as we scroll, and it gives this really nice effect. I mean, look how nice that is. It's cool. And I'm still playing with this, of course. It's not final or anything, but just compare that to this first version, where everything scrolls together. I mean, just seeing it like that, you can see how big of a difference it makes. Now, there's one little problem with this, if I put this back, and that is we're using the scroll Y for the entire page right now. So the whole page goes from 0 to 1. When I get to the very bottom, it's 100%, right? But let's say that, I'm happy with this rate of kind of movement in the back. Or let's say I wanted it to be a little bit less. Let's put this back down to like 50. So there's still some parallax, but that's kind of how fast I want it. This is using the whole page height. So let's say down here in this section where it says meet the team, let's come down there and let's just say that I added some more videos, right? Then we'll just kind of copy this a couple of times. So now we have this, this section repeated. The page is a lot longer. And now let's take a look at our effect. Well, the effect is almost gone completely. And that's because we're deriving that transform based on, the overall percentage. But now the page has gotten a lot longer, and so it's kind of messed up our calculations here. So there's a couple ways we can solve this. Instead of using the scroll Y progress, we can grab scroll Y. And this is going to be the actual pixel value scrolled. So that doesn't really matter. Like if the top part of the page, you want it to parallax once you scroll, 500 pixels, that'll stay the same regardless of how long the page is. So we could change this to scroll Y and say, let's go from 0 to 500 pixels, something like that, and give this a shot. And now we can see the parallax is back, even though the page is long. You can kind of get a feel for the rate of it right here. And maybe that's a little bit too long, so maybe we'll go like 250, something like that. And oh, that's too short. Maybe 600. So it's not quite so dramatic. That looks pretty good. And even though the page is long, if we make the page short, again, let's come in, kind of comment all these out. Then the rate of parallax scrolling should be exactly the same, and we see it is. And so that's one way to fix this, right, is to use the pixel values, the amount of pixels you've actually scrolled on the body. But another cooler way is to actually track how much percentage of this particular element that we've scrolled, right? Because this is really the element we care about. Conceptually, the video belongs to kind of this header section, this first one up here. And maybe we want to just shift it a certain amount once you've scrolled through that header section, right? And we can do that by getting a ref to that section with use ref. And we'll just pass this in to target. And needs to start out as null to make TypeScript happy here. And now we can go back to scroll Y progress, and we should be able to use this to control our parallax. But you'll see here, this is not quite working. And to explain why, I need to tell you about one more option to use scroll to make this target property work. So let's pop over to this test page. I'm just going to visit /test. And right now I just have this paragraph. Let's go ahead and just write a section component that returns a div with some paragraph lorem ipsum in here. And we can render a section, maybe a few. We'll slap a space Y4 on this, and then maybe PY10, something like that. And now we've got some sections here. And what I'm going to do is throw in a div. We'll make this height 20, background blue 500, something like that. Maybe height 10. And we're going to do the same thing that we just did. So we're going to grab use scroll. This is going to give us the scroll Y progress. And I'm going to go ahead and transform this scroll Y progress from 0 to 1, outputting to 0% to 100%. And this is going to give me a width that I'm going to use to go ahead and motion.div this and give this a width like that. So that was kind of fast, but hopefully you get the idea of what's going on here. I basically have a div. The width is being tracked by the progress that we scroll, right? And so even though I have all these different sections being rendered right here, the width of the bar is filling up based on the overall scroll progress. Okay, so now let's change each one of these sections to have its percentage bar tied to how far we've scrolled that section, right? So we're going to do the same thing kind of we want to do on the home page, which was pass in a target here. So we need a ref. And we're going to go ahead and slap this on this bad boy. So you would expect this to basically go like 0 to 1 as we move through. But you can see here, this top one is basically almost done. And once the top of it gets to the top of the container of the window, it thinks it's done. And so that's the problem we were seeing on the home page. It was basically at 0%. And this has to do with this extra option here called offset. Okay, and offset is how we tell use scroll, what does it mean for this target to be scrolled 0% of the way through, and what does it mean for it to be 100% of the way. So in our case, I think what would make sense for these is you'd want the bar to start, let's say this is a section. You'd want the bar to start once the bottom of the section, the end of it, kind of the edge, the lower edge, is at the lower edge of the container. And the way you do this with this property would say end, end. And then you want it to end, you want it to be 100% once the end of this target hits the start of the parent container. And so we would say end start. It's kind of a funny syntax. You can read the docs to see how it works. But look at that. Now we're getting individual scroll progress for each one of our targets. Pretty cool, right? And so again, conceptually what's going on here, if we bring up our inspector, this is that section, right? And so it starts right when the bottom edge, right down here, hits the bottom of our container. That's what this end means. And it finishes when the bottom of our target hits the start edge of our container. And this is kind of fun because you can define what it means to be 100% complete. We could say it's done when the top of it gets to the top of the page, and these would finish faster. So that's just a quick demo showing you this offset property. It takes a little bit playing to get used to the syntax, but it's pretty powerful. You can do percentage offsets, you can do pixel offsets. I'll link to the docs in the description. But knowing that, if we come back to our actual project, what do we want to have happen here? Well, let's pull up our inspector and take a look at our ref section. It's right here. And so conceptually, this should be 0%. So when the start of this target is at the start, that's 0. And then as we scroll, we want it to be 100% once the end of our target is at the start of the container. So if we pop back over and we say offset, first it's going to be start, and then it's going to be end start. And now that we're back with progress, this goes from 0 to 1. And look at that. We've got our parallax back, and we can actually even see it stops once it goes to that top section. So we can decide what we want to do there too. But this is nice, and this is also going to be invariant to the length of our document here. So if we add a bunch of sections, this rate of parallax scrolling up here is going to be exactly the same. So I like that. And let's say I come here to where it says learn how to build. And instead of kind of adding 32 units of space, we make this 64, right? Well, now we're getting the same relationship between how fast the parallax is actually happening, the rate, and the amount of content. And I think that's going to be a lot nicer for, things like responsive design. Like if you want the video to shift up by 50% once a user scrolled through the top section, then I think this is kind of the most intuitive way to do it. I haven't really worked on this part that much, but you can kind of see what I'm saying. You're going to scroll through that section at different rates on different devices. So I think this is the solution I'm most happy with, using this target property and the offset to get it to just be exactly like what you want. So that's what I wanted to show you. Again, I'm a little embarrassed that I've never done this myself. We see this kind of thing all the time on Apple websites. I mean, you can go crazy with this, right? You don't have to just do the Y. You could do opacity. So if we wanted to say, once we're scrolled all the way through, we actually want the opacity to go from 100 to 0. I think these can probably just be 1 to 0. And we could slap this on here as well. And look at that, it fades out as you scroll down. How cool is that? So easy. And what about scaling? Maybe we want to say scale as we go from 0 to 100%. let's scale from like 100%, I don't know, to 80%. Slap that on here. How's that look? Maybe even more, 70. I don't know, you just have fun with it. I mean, how cool is this? Right? This is so much easier than I thought it was going to be. I mean, you can get pretty wild. That might induce some nausea here, but you know, you get the idea here, and it's just a lot of fun. So I'm definitely going to be using this. Yeah, I really don't like that scale. Let's go ahead and drop that. But the opacity is pretty cool, and you're basically just deriving these motion values from the scrolling of the document or how far you've scrolled an element. So I thought that was too cool not to share. Hope it all made sense. You get to use in your own projects. It's 75 degrees outside in New York right now. It is the perfect time of year to visit. If you've never been to New York City, September and October are the best times to visit. But I'm going to go outside and go for a walk. So I will see you in the next video.